Good evening, everyone. I'm just checking out the chat to see who all is here. Hi, Donnie. Hi, Viv. Hi, Tracy K. I should never have done this show in January. This is right when Jay loves to start on how I am older than him for the next 6 months. Hey, Charlotte. Hi, Mandy. Hi, Mom. Hi, Mistina. Okay. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Serena. Hi, Madeline. Okay. So, welcome to Saturday Night Psych. I'm Shannon Shaming. If you have not been on my channel before, this is my psych show that I have on Saturdays where we talk about different true crime and things that are going on in the media. So right now, it is awards season. We just had the Golden Globes last week. We will now have, like the People's Choice, I think. That's in like January, I think. But, this is January. We have the Oscars coming up in February. And we will have the SAG Awards. And so the Rage is this movie with Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore called May December that has just come out, and it came out on Netflix exclusively. It wasn't in the theaters. And so, hi, who you with? Hello to Gerald. I'm glad you're new here. I'm glad you're here. Hi, Amber. So I watched it, and then I started thinking about it and thinking about this case, which really has never left my consciousness. I don't know why. This case really struck a nerve with me at the time. I always would keep up with what was going on with the two of them. And so I was really interested in this movie. And then I heard that Vili, the male counterpart of this relationship, was not happy with it. So we are going to talk about May December at the end of the show. But first, we're going to do a quick overview about this case and kind of go through, like we do, what they say about themselves after we go through the timeline. And then I'll give you some final thoughts on what I think. But first, I wanted to go over, if you would like to know more about my qualifications, you'll find them in the box below. You can see exactly how I became a registered drama therapist and how I keep my qualifications up to this day. Also, below, you're going to find the sources for this video, which included a lot of interviews that are on YouTube as well. There was an interview with Vili himself after Mary Kay's death. She recently died. And that interview was with Dr. Oz, so that will be on there. Then there will be splices of the documentary from A&E that they were both on together. And then parts of the timeline are taken from the book by Gregg Olsen, which is called If Loving You Is Wrong. And he's a true crime writer. And I got that for $3.99 on a Kindle the other night and have been tearing through it. So, any hoozle, let's go through this timeline. And I couldn't find I found a couple timelines, but they just weren't what I wanted because they didn't have enough of Mary's early life. So I wanted something with Mary's early life, so I made my own. So, thank you for saying my hair is cute and you guys like my jacket. This jacket, yes, it's a bomber jacket, and it is from my friend Whitney. She gave it to me, and I love it because it's from her. And she used to wear it, and she's super fashionable. So I know I can't go wrong if I wear it. All right. So here we go. We are going to start out. So Mary Kay was born Mary Catherine Schmitz in 1962. She had 3 older brothers when she was born. And then they had her, and then they had 2 more girls, and then they had a boy named Philip. So they had a lot of children, and they were like not socialites, but they were in the political realm. Her dad ended up being a state senator in California, and they were very, very, very Catholic and very far right. So they were really, antagonistic to what was going on in the world at the time with like the equal rights for women and all these things are coming up, and they were very anti those things. So at that point in civil rights, all these things, they were very anti those things. So they were kind of, well known in the political sphere because they would get on and debate with other people from the other side. And in fact, I found out that her mom, Mary Schmitz, would be on this TV show with Gloria Allred, where basically they would just fight each other. And I cannot find it. I've tried, but I haven't tried super, super hard. So I'm going to keep trying. But I would love to see that. Gloria Allred had to have been super, super young at that point in time. If you're not familiar with her, she's a very popular lawyer for different true crime cases. And she's been a talking head for a long time. So, hi, Groot. I'm glad to see you. We haven't seen you for a while. Hi, Fuzzy Puff. I know you can be on here more in the night than the day. Hi, Debbie. So, anywho, yes, I gently tried. I didn't try hard enough yet, Mandy, to find this stuff yet. So she's born into this family, and the mom is a piece of work, let me tell you, because one thing that was super interesting about her to me was that she was very into like having this Rose Kennedy look about their family and the children, like they all looked perfect when they went out type of thing. But they had a 2-story home. In the first story, they would entertain people. They had like Mary Kay talks about having like a white chintz sofa that was, just beautiful, and the crystal was shining, and they had a cleaning lady for the bottom of the house, etc. The top of the house is where the children lived in their bedrooms, and her grade school through high school or through college friend was interviewed for Gregg Olsen's book, and he said that she would not go to the bathroom when she was over at Mary Kay's house because the bathroom that was upstairs for the children to use had so much mold and mildew in it. It was disgusting. Their mattresses were on the floor. They had just drawers that were pulled out of the dresser, no dresser, just drawers on the floor with their belongings in them, bean bags as furniture. And that's it, which was a stark difference from downstairs where they were really, it looked very opulent and like they were, very used to entertaining down there. The children weren't allowed down there. So they also had a pool in the backyard, which leads to this story because when Mary Kay was, she would have been, 11 years old. Her little brother, the youngest, the baby. So they had 3 boys. And then they had 3 girls, and then they had a baby boy. And his name was Philip. And he was 3 years old. And she was outside in the pool, Mary Kay was, along with a couple more of the siblings were in the pool. And he somehow slipped into the deep end of the pool while the other kids were in the shallow end. Mom is inside. And by the time they got him out, he could not be saved. Terribly tragic. And Mary Kay's friend, who was interviewed for Gregg Olsen's book, said that they kind of blamed Mary Kay because she was the oldest daughter and she was supposed to be watching, or at least her mom kind of blamed her. She was supposed to be watching Philip. And So early tragedy in her life, definitely. So they go about their business being, like toast of the town in the political realm. He becomes a state senator. Before he was a senator, he was also a teacher. He was a community college professor. And why this is important is because while he was a professor, he begins to have an affair with a student. Now, I'm saying affair because the person is over the age of 18. They were in college at the time. So he begins having an affair with a student while he is married to Mary Kay's mother still. And he has this affair for many, many, many years. She has 2 children with him, a son and a daughter. And nobody knows about it until 1982, like the shit hits the fan because the son is injured, and his injury is, they're worried that the mom caused the injury. So they're like, you have to tell us who this kid's father is. And she's like, well, it's Senator John Schmitz. And they're like, State Senator John Schmitz? Yeah, right, lady. You're nuts. Because, that's how you treat women at that point in time. And then they asked him, and he straight out did not deny it. He was like, yeah, that is my child, but I have nothing to do with him. I'm not going to pay for him, and I'm not going to give her any money either. So that's interesting. 2 children while married to another person and being the person's teacher. It's a little familiar to what we are going to see later on in this timeline. So that was in 1982 when the shit hit the fan. And then they got divorced. Mary's parents got divorced because it was very embarrassing for her, of course. And it ruined his political aspirations because he was like the family values. They were very they did not want sex education in schools, etc. So it is so interesting that was how that all ended up going with her family of origin. Now, 1983, Vili Fualaau was born. And so at around that time, he's a baby. You're born a baby. Then Mary Kay and Steve Letourneau get married in 1984. So just a scant year after Vili is born, she is of the age to marry her first husband, who is Steve Letourneau. And they end up having 4 children together. I have the dates above. I didn't put their birth dates on there. I didn't do that much reconnaissance into the first children. I just found the years. So in 84, 87, 91, and 93, they had their children. In 1991, Vili Fualaau is in Mary Kay Letourneau's second grade class. Second grade class. And then now we get to our first point of contention because there are different stories as far as what happened in 1996. In 1996, some say that Mary Kay was the classroom teacher for Vili Fualaau in the 6th grade. She denies this. She says that she was not his teacher. He had a different 6th grade teacher, but she also was teaching 6th grade at that time. So maybe he was just in another class or something. Not quite sure exactly, but regardless, he is 12 years old and she's, in her 30s, and she has the 4 children, and her son that was born in 84 is about the same age as Vili. And so she was kind of took Vili under her wing and was mentoring him, in her own words. And so she said that she oftentimes brought Vili to her home to play with her son. So that is what was going on during the school year. And then, I see people are having trouble with memberships. memberships are kind of tricky on the app. If you are on, just like Law Nerd Amber just said, this is great advice. If you are on the iPhone, you have to open Safari. It's so much easier to do it from a desktop or from your laptop or something, because on an iPhone, it's just so hard. So, and I'm going to be really careful, because I had just learned from Joe that it's very, very not okay on YouTube to use the R word when we're talking about a terrible, violent act that happens to people. So that's what I have the asterisks to say. And also, I'm going to use that term, or the asterisks, because this was not an affair. This was a predatory behavior, in my opinion, because this is a child. So in June, the summer of 1996 is the first time that the relationship turns from emotional to Mary committing that act. Then it is quite a while. Like, it is a freaking long time, in my opinion, because from June to 96 to March of 97, things are going on with the two of them. And she is not arrested until March of 1997. So she is arrested for second-degree asterisks. And she pleads guilty. It takes like a year before she's going to plead guilty again, because the court system, etc. It's taken a while. She pleads guilty. She gets a suspended sentence, or she's going to get, no time in prison, or like time served, which was like 3 months or something. And the exchange for that is that she will just never see Vili again. That's the exchange for that plea deal. So, and that's all she has to do. And she will not have to go to jail. She will not lose custody of her children. She, her 4 other children that she has so far. She will, Brooklyn, thank you for being a member for a month. And Brooke Ward, let me see. Oh my goodness, I lost. Oh, honey, it doesn't have it up here. Like, usually it says, funded things, so I can find it. Shelly did $5. Thank you, Donnie, and thank you, babe, for keeping me on top of this. Shannon L., thank you for becoming a member as well. You guys are awesome. So yeah, Mandy Jo, she is not going to have to be on the offender registration if she abides by this. However, spoiler alert, she does not abide by this whatsoever. In fact, she even asks her lawyer, like right after she gets out, she says to her lawyer, can they put tracking devices on your car? And he's like, yes, Mary Kay, they can. And then lo and behold, she's back before the judge again. And the judge is like, no, Miss Ma'am, we are not going through this again. Now you're going for the full 7.5 years that you get for this crime. And so she's sent to prison for 7.5 years. Now, right before she's like waiting to have that time before she goes to... trying to think of when it exactly. It's right after she's arrested, but before she does the plea, she has her first child with that Vili is the father of. Then she has the second child while in prison. So yes, during that little time period that she gets out, obviously the asterisks are happening again, because again, he is the father of this next child. Now, Vili, at this point in time, the first daughter is born. Vili is 14 years old. The second daughter is born. Vili is 15 years old. Which I know we've seen that like with Melly's mom lately. We've seen some cases with 15-year-old moms, but those people also had like 15 and 16-year-old dads. This is a woman in her 30s, so a little bit different. Hi, Para Woman Radio. She had him as a student when he was 8 years old, but nothing, according to the both of them, nothing really happened at that point in time. They just, were teacher-student. And then when he was 12 and he was in the 6th grade is when they started, Mary started this business. So then we have, so then again, she's going to get out and she's going to get out in 2004, right? And this whole time, she is not supposed to be talking to Vili, which is, of course, by all accounts, that's of course difficult because they have 2 children now. They have 2 infants, and Vili and his mom are raising the infant children. Now, Steve, her first husband, he got divorced in 1999 from her. He freaking got full custody of all 4 children, and he moved to Alaska. He was like, I am the F out of here because no way. So, and at this point in time, she doesn't live in California. They live in Seattle, the Seattle area, or possibly Portland. I get Seattle and Portland confused all the time. So if you guys come back to this and you're going to leave a comment and be like, it actually was Portland, you're absolutely right. I can never remember the difference between Seattle and Portland. It must be because I'm on the other coast. Any hoozle. So, 2004, she's going to get out. But I told you, they're not supposed to be communicating, but they do communicate. And the way they communicated when their child was an infant was apparently she would stuff, ladies who breastfed, you'll know this because the bottle doesn't really have like a bottle. It has like a screw-on lid that you store the milk in. So she's breastfeeding in prison. She pumps the milk. She puts, the little bottle with the screw lid, not with the nipple lid. And she would stick in that lid. You remember those lids? They had the little thing on them. She would stick a note in there. And that is how they communicated. And then I guess she got the bottles back from him empty, which I guess makes sense because, prisons aren't just made of money. They're not just going to give you all these, free bottles or something. And those suckers are expensive. So, especially at this point in time. So she gets the bottles back and they have notes from him in them. And basically what I'm telling you at this point in time is she was breaking the court order and she is being coercive to him because she's still trying to control the narrative and the relationship while she's in jail and being punished for even being with him in the first place. So that is how they kind of stay in touch. Vili and his mom, while she is in jail, they file a lawsuit against the school system for $1 million and they lose. And a lot of this stuff, you guys, was so much because, as women, we have to suffer with the patriarchy. But for some reason, if we are doing the Asterisk Act, we get off super easy because nobody thinks that women can really do the Asterisk Act, or there is some, discussion about that. And so basically the school is like, no, and the court is like, no, this isn't the school's fault at this point in time. And I just can't imagine. So at this point in time, he's, probably 15 years old and he's being told his mom and him, want to sue the school. And the school's like, no, that didn't happen to you. You aren't a victim. So now, Mary's telling him he's not a victim. The school's told him he's not a victim. I can't imagine being his age and putting myself in his shoes. So he turns 21. When she gets out of jail, the basic plan, I don't know how they're communicating at this point in time, probably through a third party, which is how a lot of people communicate in jail and don't get caught. They decide that he's going to go and he is going to Oh, thank you, Brooke. Brooke says, you said it so well in a prior stream. Letting women get away with it. What, honey? Oh, Mike, that was so nice of you to buy a membership. Thank you. She says, I said it so well in a prior stream, letting women get away with this is still a result of the patriarchy. It is. Yes, they did try to hold the school accountable. That part makes me so sick. So, and agreed, Shelley, he never had a childhood. He never had a chance to be a kid. And so, where are we? So he goes before a judge. He's 21 years old, and he wants the judge to remove the no contact order. Now, the judge will remove the no contact order. However, Mary Kay also wants him to remove that she has to be on the registry, and the judge is like, no. So she was, until the time of her death, on the sex offender registry. So I'm drinking wine tonight because this story has also, it just gets me. Melissa, thank you for sharing your story with us. We're sorry that happened to you. It is not right. And I agree with you. He is a victim. And she says, God bless him and his children. So they're out. Then she doesn't lose. She never lost custody of the two daughters. And so they begin raising their daughters together. And they get married in 2005. At this point in time, Mary Kay Letourneau is 43, which is exactly my age, at least for another week. And Vili is 22. And I can just tell you that when I see these, I'm saying boys, the boys that play on the Kansas Jayhawks, I will be like, oh, well, isn't that a little cutie patootie? Isn't he so cute? And then I relate to his mom in the crowd. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's seeing her son do this. I do not ever think wow, that little boy that's on the Jayhawks is super hot. And these college athletes, they're well muscled and they're full grown men, but to me, they still look like a little boy. So interestingly enough, even at this point in time, she's, they get married, 43 and 22. So they stay married for a while, folks. They are married for, 12 years. And at that point in time, in 2017, Vili files for legal separation from her, and they try to work it out. According to both of them, they really try to stay together for their children. And then the divorce is finally granted in 2019. Then, not long after the divorce is granted, and they're living separately, she gets sick. So she finds out that she has colon cancer. She gets sick, and they basically, by the time they find out she has colon cancer, she has stage 4 colon cancer. And Vili moves in with Mary Kay and takes care of her for the rest of her life. And so he runs that household. If you want to watch the most heartbreaking interview, I think, is the one with him and Dr. Oz, because it is not long after he loses Mary Kay. And also it is just showing you that he went and, gave up even more of his life to care for her. And he did that for her, and he did that for his children as well. So watch that interview if you like Debbie Downer. If you really love things that will really upset you, watch that interview. It's an important interview, though, I feel like, because Dr. Oz also, we're going to turn now to more what they say about themselves as all. This is what I think too. People are realizing that they need to protect their boys just as much as their girls. They are all prey for this type of offender. I agree. Such a good point. So, Jennifer, thank you so very much. Jennifer sent a super sticker for $4. And it's the character handing over a cup of coffee. Thank you. Thank you. That was so sweet. Awesome. So, anywho, let's go back. You know what? I don't know, Debbie. I don't know. I can only tell you what he said in interviews and what I think. So it's all speculation because he's never really been public about why they separated. So the interview with Dr. Oz, why I believe that this has an important moment in it is because he says, Dr. Oz says to him, where am I going? I forgot what he said. Sorry, guys. I am really blanking for a moment. I know what it was. Dr. Oz asks him, he's a 35? No, he's not 35 in that interview. That's a different interview. He's 40 in this interview. And he says, as a 40-year-old, and now that you've had teenage children, what would happen if you thought that you or your child was attracted to a 13-year-old or wanted to have a relationship with a 13-year-old? His daughters are now adults as well. So, and he says to Dr. Oz, I think that I would seek mental health care. And I just think that's a pivotal moment because you see in that moment, and this interview is really hard for him just because of that it hasn't been that long that these things have happened, and he's now really on his own for the first time, discovering how he feels about the situation without her around. And so I think that's just a pivotal moment in that interview that he realizes that she needed help at that point in time. She didn't, what she did wasn't something that should have happened. So what they said, and then in the interviews, if you go and watch the interviews, they're wild. Like if you forgot about this case and you've never seen the interviews with them, they're real wild. And it's not because of Vili. She really wants to frame this, and why I call this show Who's the Boss, and who was the boss, and why I talk about who owns the narrative is because in these interviews with Mary Kay, if you watch them like I did, I think that you will see that she was very much trying to run the narrative the entire existence of any sort of relationship and during the time that she was abusing him, because she really wants to frame this as a love story. So much of the time it comes out that it's a love story. It's a love story. And now we're married, so it's okay. And it's disrespectful to say those things because we have children and we're married, and you're basically disrespecting our children's lives by saying we should have never been together. So Tayo, you've been a member for a month. Thank you so much, Phil. We're glad you're here. Hi, Gambies. I'm glad you're here. And hello, Spring Kim. Glad to see you. Whoever is prepping for their colonoscopy, good job. You can do it. I haven't had to do one yet because like I said, I'm 43, but it's coming for me. It's coming for me soon. So, hi, Amanda. You're never late here. You're never late. Don't feel like that. All right. So Anywho, she really wants to run that narrative, and the narrative she wants is that this is a love story. And it is reiterated so many times in every single interview. I agree, Sarah. I wondered if anybody was going to say something about who's the boss when I posted that. However, the reason that I posted that is because that is an exact interview, and it's gone viral on TikTok lately. But it is a point in the interview that she basically demands of him. It's uncomfortable as all get out. The body language is uncomfortable. It's awful. They're sitting side by side, and they're married at this point in time. And he's 35 and she's, 52 or something. And they're sitting side by side, and he says, the interviewer is talking about how he was a child and she pursued him, and she just shuts down the interviewer, and she's like, no, he pursued me. And Vili kind of goes to disagree with her, kind of moves like he's going to disagree with her. And she cuts it off immediately and is like, who was the boss? Who was the boss back then? And he will not answer, because in most of these interviews, he is very quiet. The interviewer almost has to tell her to shut up in order to, or be like, no, this question is for Vili. I want Vili to answer this, because all the time she's running over him. And so it is just the most uncomfortable, upsetting thing, especially it's trigger warning if you've ever been abused by someone, especially a family member that then tries to shift and control the narrative. That's exactly what you see there. You see this blame shifting from her, where she's saying she is trying to get this interviewer, and thus us in America, to believe that a 13-year-old was the person who, yes, there is a video of the interview, and I'm going to link it in the box below, but it's on YouTube. Just go to, you can just search, if you just want to see that part, you can just search who's the boss, Mary Kay Letourneau, and it will show you, or who was the boss back then. Oh, Gambies, thank you so much. It helps me make sense of things, because I am a very visual person. So I like to have it, and I like to be able to go through things chronologically, because I feel like it kind of helps me to put into perspective the length of time that this was going on. And so that part is uncomfortable. She does that part. Then this is wild, guys. She basically says that, and she kind of goes back to her own parents, her upbringing, because she basically tells us in the interview, yes, Sarah, that it's also in May, December. They take that exactly out from that interview and put that in the movie. Not everything from the movie is exact, but that part is exact. And it's hard. It's hard to watch in the movie, even when it's fictional. But her first thing she wants to talk about is that he wasn't really her student. Like, there are so many justifications in this interview. You lose track of how many there are. He was not really her student. Then, this is a tricky one. She gets him into this art institution. So in the summer of 1996, which we talked about what happens in the summer of 1996, she gets him into this art program, and she helps him do his portfolio for it. And it's at a local community college. Now, at the same time, she happens to be taking her teacher's CEUs, her continuing education units, so that she can keep up her teacher's license. She literally, you guys, in this interview, tries to frame it as they're both at the college together. Like, they were on the same level. They were both students at the college. He is 13 at this point in time, and she is trying to, say that they're both college students, which They aren't. So that is wild. And obviously, like, she got him into that program in the first place. Like, she put him in a place where she knew that she would be. Yes, somebody please block Jay. Yes, we were both 16 in 1996. So any hoozle, that's the first justification. He wasn't my student, and we were in college together, guys. No, they weren't. The next thing that you will find so often with people who have done this type of behavior is she weaponizes her ignorance. And what I mean by that is she's like, I didn't know that this was against the law. We were in love and we had a child together. Because back then, statutory rage was only mentioned for men. And it was, it was not on the books as such. And so she says that she doesn't know it and she didn't think about it. And this was definitely weaponized ignorance, because the very first time that a police officer finds them in her minivan, she lies multiple times. She says that she's basically babysitting him and she got in a fight with her husband. And so she had to bring him with her to leave the house because it was too upsetting. And she's wearing a nightgown. And so the officer's pretty suspicious. And she says, she asks him, she says he's 18. He says, how old is he? And she says 18. He's 13 at the time. And then he asks Vili how old Vili is. And Vili says, I'm 14. So even Vili's trying to make himself older. And that's just so like pierces my heart, because it's like a child being like, okay, I got to make myself older. He makes himself 14. Sweet baby. So anywho, she lies from the get-go. So she definitely knew it was wrong. If it wasn't a law and there was nothing wrong with it, then you wouldn't have been making up these stories. You would have just been like, oh, this is me and my boyfriend. We're out, like I'm pregnant with this child, whatever. So that's what I mean by she weaponizes her ignorance, and she does it all the time. You guys will see this in these interviews if you ever watch them or ever watch interactions with her. She's just like acts like she's clueless. She didn't know. She didn't know. And that rules should be different for her because she's a woman and because she is also in love with him. And somewhat Brooklyn, that's what I kind of think. Although, interestingly enough, so I figured that when I read about her past being super ultra religious, like they were very against like sex education in the schools, etc., her friend was saying like that she didn't have that strict of a childhood. Those were things they believed, but like her and Mary were wild and they were cheerleaders and they had a lot of fun and they went out with lots of different guys, and good for them. All those things are fine because all those people were age appropriate. And so it wasn't like she didn't have a youth, because that's what I was expecting to find. I was expecting to find that like she was raised in a super strict religious home. She never like experienced her youth. She had to marry like the very first guy that she ever talked to. No, it was not the case whatsoever. So very interesting that was, not the case. And also what's interesting to me is that another justification that she makes for her acts are that like the Supreme Court basically like submarined her because they brought in equal rights. And the Equal Rights Amendment submarined her because now things are, equal for women, and they shouldn't be in this realm, because she basically says like you can only be this type of offender or predator if you're a male doing this and not if you're a female. And maybe if you were a female doing it to a female, she might think it was okay. But basically she's going with the whole like, anatomical response from a male that may happen, which does not mean that he's giving consent, as we all know. But to her, she says, well, that's good enough for consent for her. So anywho, I'm really trying hard to not get the stream taken down by using my words that I really want to use. And you all know what they are. And I'm real mad and I want to say them, but I won't. So anywho, she also, so the Equal Rights Amendment has ruined her. And that was, that's kind of like akin with her dad, which was interesting. She also does these gentle corrections to him all the time. Debbie, that's such a good question. I know a lot of people are probably wondering this. Did she have contact with her 4 children by her first husband? Yes. I think he did the right thing too. I can't imagine the trauma they went through and still go through to this day because their mom is still in the news and it still comes up all the time. Her youngest daughter from her first marriage was present when she died. And the other kids came after that as well. The youngest daughter, though, was like there for like the final few days as she was dying. So that was exactly, Viv, exactly. This is exactly right. This is an important thing to teach your sons and daughters, that does not mean consent for a male. Yes, exactly. We have to use the creative language. We have to use the asterisks. So she did have some contact with them, and throughout their lives, she tried to stay in contact, she says, with her other children. So she did, she says that in the interviews and things. So she did have some contact with them. And he says he had contact with them as well. He says it's kind of weird being a stepdad to people that you are almost the same age as. So I'm sure that was just a mind fuck for both sides of the equation. Vili's side of the equation and her children's side of the equation. And her children with Vili's side of the equation. So, I'm going through all of her things that she said. This is the other one. She's like, wants a cookie for taking the plea deal. You guys, she basically says she took the plea deal because it was the less dramatic thing to do for Vili. It's like, because, she could have basically gone to court and pled innocent. She didn't really believe that she was guilty. She doesn't think she did anything wrong. She still, to the day that she died, did not think she did anything wrong. And she's basically saying, like, she could have just taken it to court all the way, but she didn't do that. And it was so interesting because she said, but that would have gotten, and what she says is not my 4 children, not Steve, not Vili, blah, blah, blah. She says, that would have gotten my father involved, which is super weird because she's like 52 at the point in time that she says this. And it's like, why are you so stunted? So her friend offers a perspective on why she may be stunted, besides that her mother was cold, didn't pay attention to her, didn't like her, blamed her for her 3-year-old brother's death, was just not a real great person. The dad is, out there having a mistress who's in community college in his class. There's all these things, but then her childhood friend also said that Mary had told her that abuse happened between one of her older brothers and her. Now, she had 3 older brothers. She never said in the book or indicated which brother it was, but abuse had happened between them. Then, just like in May, December, Mary walks that back completely and says that didn't happen. And if it did happen, she says it was just fondling and she was consenting to it, so it was fine. And when she said no, it stopped. So no harm, no foul kind of thing. So that whole business could be, and this was around when she was about the age of Philip dying as well. So about 11 years old. So that really like prepubescent time, going into puberty type of time, which is interesting because that's about the age of Vili when she first is perpetrating upon him. So I agree, Mandy. She does get the shitty person award. All right. Other things she said. So she's like, she wants Vili and she wants America to be like, oh, this woman took the plea deal and she didn't even have to take the plea deal. Like, oh my gosh, how great. What? So she also, the other thing, is the whole blame the victim thing. I never pursued him. I never pursued the idea. I never pursued any of it. He pursued me. He pursued me. He pursued me. And I do not care. Like, I could hear this as a therapist. I have heard this type of narrative so many times, and it never, ever, ever rings true because a logical person knows that the adult is in control in the situation and a child is not in control. Or the person who is in control and has the power and control in the relationship has the power and control. So like the secretary always like pursuing the boss. Yes, because they're both adults. Sure. But the boss has another level of responsibility because they have power and control. So she is also, he thinks of her as a teacher. He thinks of her as a mentor, which she's actually said in the time. And he had a very difficult home life growing up because they had a lot of children and they did not have a lot of money. And his mom had to work all the time. And so his mom was like welcoming, which this is so sad. This happens a lot. And a lot of predators take advantage of this. If there's like a single parent or somebody working really hard, I know they will, be like, oh, I'll take your son to practice, or I'll take your daughter to, dance class every day because you're busy, or, she can come hang out at the church or whatever. And that was what was going on here. She was taking advantage of that situation that the mom trusted her because she was a teacher and she had been a teacher of his siblings as well. And so there was a level of trust there. She takes advantage of that and, endears herself to his mom and has more access to him. And yet she's saying he's the pursuer. He's the one who did everything. So upsetting. Obfuscation. That is just like the whole interview is just, it's word salad from her 90% of the time because, she really, really, really wants people to not say that anything she did was wrong and that she is the P word that ends with file. She hates that because that is not what she is. And she even wants us to know that she's had mental evaluations, folks. She's had mental evaluations that say she is not that. Well, I mean, we also have biological proof that you are that. So you can't be like, if you murder one person, you are a murderer. If you only perpetrate against one person, you are still an asterixer. So, or an asterixist. And yes, exactly. So, of course, can there be inappropriate things that happen, especially with children who have had this type of abuse in their life? They will sometimes try to act out in this way and because they think that that's the way to get attention or the way to please an adult. And so they may act out in this way, but as the adult in the situation, you have to stop that. You have to go out and be, go to your boss or go to whoever, go to his mom, go to the school counselor and say, hey, I'm concerned about this kid because this is what's going on. We probably need to move him out of my class. We probably need to do this or that. So she takes zero responsibility. She puts it all onto him. She says he was the boss when he was 13 years old. And she minimizes every single thing that he ever says. And so May, December, where this comes in. So this movie is on Netflix. If you're a Netflix member, you can watch it right away. You don't have to, wait around or go to the movies or anything. You can watch it tonight. I thought the acting in it was superb. Debbie, I'm gonna answer that before I go into May, December, how her kids with him are doing. By all accounts, they are doing well. They do get contacted like by the media sometimes, by People magazine. And the youngest daughter is pregnant. And I'm trying to think. I feel like she's due like this month. Because I think it said in January, and I think that was from this year that I read that report. So he is going to become a grandfather, or already is a grandfather. And he and the two of them are doing well. And they talk to them in another uncomfortable interview where they're like, "So do you understand what was going on with your parents?" And they're like, "Yeah, we think we understand it. And, it's just like, it's normal to us because this is what we grew up with. So we don't, think anything's weird about it." Another really super awkward interview. And I'm like, why did you do this? Even though they're adults, the kids are adults at the time. So of course, they could consent to it, but it was still like, I'm like, why are you doing this to them? So May, December. The premise of the movie is that it's been 20 years since this couple, who is based loosely on Vili Fualaau and Mary Kay, it's been 20 years, and there is going to be a movie about them. And Natalie Portman is going to be she plays an actress, so she's an actress playing an actress, which is interesting. And I think it's so well, her part is so well done, and it's very difficult. And Julianne Moore really, really nails Mary Kay Letourneau. Like, if you watch some interviews with her, you're like, oh my gosh, she's like doing the baby voice. She's doing like the really soft-spoken thing, and she's doing like the lipsticks and all this stuff. It's very, very, it reads a little windy. She has kind of a windy voice. She's always got the, the doe eyes, and she's very innocent type of thing. So, the premise is that this actress like comes in and wants to observe their relationship, and that disrupts the whole apple cart. That kind of like gets, them thinking and gets them back into, the olden days, the times that were before, etc. So that is interesting to me, because then an article comes out in The Guardian where Vili Fualaau is completely offended by this entire movie because they did not talk to him ever. They never spoke with him. But the movie is about this actress coming in and speaking with Mary Kay Letourneau so that she can best portray the character. So the irony here is like a million layers thick to me. I'm like, what? And he is super upset by it. And so I really, really liked the movie. And then I read the freaking article and I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like this person has been again, like victimized basically, because again, the movie is very heavy on Mary Kay's narrative. Okay, so Groot, you sweet thing. Super chat for $9.99. That was so nice of you. Thank you. So I then was like, God, I feel like crap for even liking this movie. Babe, no, I think she really meant it was for me. So it wasn't a typo. He's saying typo from the living room. I can hear him saying typo. I think that, I totally agree, Fuzzy Puff. What the heck? Like she was a repeat offender, even though there was one victim. She was a repeat offender. She showed that she had no remorse. She showed that she had no consideration for the law whatsoever. And, you know, she should have had to have stay in a mental health facility. Penny just sighed so loud because she thought I was being too loud. So once I heard that he didn't like the movie, I was just like, oh my gosh, I feel like he's been victimized all over again, because this story again asserts Mary Kay in the light that, like, this is a love story. And even if we're watching that and we think it's ridiculous, it's still a reiteration of her story. And it still did not at all, you know, represent what he wanted it to represent, which is exactly what happened to him in the freaking first place. Yes, Tally Gal. He spoke out recently against the film for not asking his permission. His feelings of powerlessness and anger are palpable. It is, again, and now he's like a 40-year-old man. And again, it is almost like her and society being able to abuse him again and say, like, you know, like, again, just like the court said, when the court said you weren't a victim, and he is just in the most, I feel like as a victim, he is in one of the most precarious positions ever, because if he doesn't go with Mary Kay's narrative, then he is saying to his two daughters, your mom hurt me. Your mom, you know, was this thing that she never wanted to admit she was. And he also could be conveying to them that he wishes that they weren't conceived in the way that they were. And he also, she's not alive. And it makes it so, it's even more difficult, because when somebody's not alive, they become even more of like a saint than they were in life, because nobody wants to talk bad about the dead. So, I mean, I have been this whole hour, but it's difficult because, you know, he's their only parent left, and he's saying, you know, something bad about their mom by saying he's a victim. And so I just think that he is in such a unique position, and the position is shitty. And then it makes me mad at Netflix, because they did again put him in the same position, which was of powerlessness and of like, you're not in charge. We don't care what you think, etc. And then the whole thing on top of it is that the whole movie is about this actress going to research the actual person and gets, you know, the person's permission in order to make the role better. And I mean, this is a great point, babe. She will definitely not be in the comments being like, yo, biatch, this is not true about me. Other people might be in the comments, and that's fine, but she won't be. So that is a good point. I just do not know what to feel now towards the movie. I feel like kind of cruddy towards Netflix, and feel cruddy towards you know, the writer or whoever may have been in charge of this. And then I feel bad because I'm like, oh my God, Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore put on these amazing performances, and like, it's not really their fault, but is it their fault? You know, and should the guy who played him, should he have reached out or whatever? But it's just so sticky. And I feel, again, yes, exactly. That is such the word. That's the exact word. It's re-traumatizing to him. And that sucks so bad. And I just think that he must feel like he only has two choices. Oh, cruddy. Yeah. Mandy, did you have made up, I know you were very, raised very religious like I was. Did you have made up curse words? Cruddy was one of our faves because we couldn't, definitely couldn't say shitty. And we couldn't even say poop. My mom would not allow poop. We had to say bowel movement. So I couldn't have said even poopy. Cruddy was allowed though. So anywho, what I was saying is that the position that he's in is so unique because I feel like he probably feels like he has two choices, and that's one, to never say anything and to just let it be, which is pretty much what he has. Oh, you could say fish farts. We couldn't say farts either. We had to say pass gas. My mom thought the word fart was crude and rude. Also, we could not say butt. We had to say our bottom. So we could call each other a bottom head. And then we usually got in trouble. But anyhow, so either he has to stay quiet, right? He has that choice to just let it be, ride it out. Or he has the choice to reassert Mary Kay's narrative. And that's that he isn't a victim and that it was because they were in love and she wouldn't have done this. And it was just, all these, I'm not going to reiterate her nonsense because it's ridiculous. So he has that he can say. And I feel like if he doesn't, I am recovering. Extremist. She is. We always tease her about it now. Like, we'll even say butt in front of her now. And she's like, you guys, stop. So I just feel like hold some space in your heart for Vili Fualaau. I think that he is in some ways moving on. He has a daughter from a new relationship. And that made me happy because he does seem to really enjoy being a dad. In all the interviews, he seems very in tune with his children. He says at one point in time, and I love it, it's beautiful. He's talking to Dr. Oz, and Dr. Oz asks him about his children. And he says some stuff, and he said, but I can't speak for them because they are their own person. They're each their own, being. And just that you were 14 and 15 and you ended up a parent like that is pretty amazing, that you are that well adjusted as a person. I think that is something that is joyful from his life, that he has his new daughter. And also, of course, that he was excited on the last interview I heard him, he was very excited to become a granddad. So those things are points of hope and points of good things in his life. But when you see this story is often portrayed through the patriarchy lens because it did happen, so long ago. I mean, Bill Maher went off on like a whole tangent. You can look it up. It's disgusting. Where he basically was like, Vili Fualaau's not a victim. He was so lucky to be with her. And she was, an attractive woman. And so people at that point in time, especially men, treated him like he was not a victim and he could never have been a victim. And so his career, Mandy Joe, he is a DJ, which is pretty cool. He's a DJ. I don't know what else he does besides that. He's a part-time DJ. He does and he's done that for quite a while. He did that while Mary Kay was alive as well. So he, what was I saying before that? Oh, I hope that he embraces, there's nothing, this is I know you mean embraces that. Nothing like being a grandparent. I hope he truly embraces that. I think that is so true. Like, you get to have this second chance, basically, but at the fun parts of parenthood. Not any of the bad parts where you like have to take the kid home with you and like they're up at night and they're sick or whatever. So it's very upsetting that the stuff that still comes out about this will still say things like an affair. This was not an affair. It will still say things like a relationship, which it was a relationship afterwards, but they'll talk about it being a asterisk relationship, but they'll use a different word. And it wasn't. It was the asterisk. That's what it was. And so I think that it was such an awful time to be a victim, and it's not really gotten that much better for men. Yep, it's exactly right. This is exactly right, Leonard Amber says. Men are abused. Men are victimized. It doesn't mean they're not masculine. It means they've been targeted by an abuser, and that is exactly freaking right. And it is not really that much easier. You're seeing that this happened in like the late 90s, but it's not really that much easier. People are still saying these things when children are abused by an attractive teacher. And I see it a lot on the news lately. I see a lot of female teachers abusing male students. And I still see a lot of, tweets and things like that saying that, oh, he's, bragging about it in the locker room or whatever. And that just is not mentally okay to assert about children. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight and for going down the rabbit hole with me on this case. This is such a exactly Brooklyn. Nobody takes it seriously when it's a boy saying that, like he was asterisked by the teacher. They're like, oh, lucky you. Good job. Terrible. Freaking terrible. I think of my daughter is 13 right now, and my stepson is 13, and I would hit the fucking roof if a teacher was acting in that way towards them. They are babies to me. And I can't, it's just, it's so upsetting. So I wanted to kind of bring that into our collective consciousness again, because I know that this is a story that's kind of been around for a long time. And somebody told me that they'd even talked about this on Court TV last night. So I've got my finger right on the pulse of everything that's going on, clearly. Thank you for being here. Yes, our timeline will be added to Patreon. Yes. Oh, thank you so much. Mods, thank you for being here. So nice of you to be here. I know so many of you are here. Tracy K, Mandy's here. I saw Stevie. I saw Amber. I feel like Romper Room. I see Jay. I see all my mods. Thank you very, very, very much for being here and for being mods for us. It's just amazing. I hope you all have a great weekend. Tomorrow, Charlotte, you're up really late or like super early. Thank you for being here. And thank you for saying my timelines are unmatched. That's very sweet. I love making a visual for you guys. So if you ever want, a timeline made about a case, I'm currently working on a LISC one for Joe because he said he really wants one. And oh my gosh, it's going to be a long time because there's a lot. Like there's years and years and years and years. So I had to put that on the back burner, but I go in and work on it sometimes. Yes, I agree. Amber, yes. He endured. He did endure. And his story does matter, and his abuse was real, and he was groomed. It's very true. Oh gosh, I hope I can say that. I think you can say that word. But anywho, Thank you so very much for being here. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for buying memberships and becoming members. It's so awesome. Please enjoy your weekend. Please go to Murder Church in the morning. I ordered a Murder Church beanie. I cannot wait for it to be here. It better be here before my birthday because it's kind of like my own little birthday treat for myself that I bought. But meet us in Murder Church in the morning. It's going to be, just a hallelujah of a time. All right. Thank you so much again. Have a great night. See you next time.